What's going on, y'all? This is Josh from Team SUPERSHOE, and welcome back to episode number 5 of The Shoe Show. We are not talking about hiking boots or running shoes now. We're talking about our boy, Corey LaJoie, and just anything NASCAR related. I am so pumped to have this episode. We are going to be talking to our buddies Jeremy and Mike, first of all, talking about March and the races and the highs and the lows. We're also going to be talking about Martinsville coming up and what our favorite memories are from Martinsville. And hopefully the next Martinsville race is going to be our most favorite memory. We're going to be talking to the statistician, magician, the shoe analyst himself, Mr. Josh Madore. He's going to be telling us why us as Corey LaJoie fans need to be excited for Talladega, one of Corey's best racetracks. And I also have a team member of the month coming on. He hangs out with us on Facebook quite a bit. And if you guys haven't hung out with us there yet, it's a group called Team SUPERSHOE. That's where this all started. That's where we all met. And that's where all of this, we even thought about it. You know, it's like, well, we should have a little bit more outlets and chat a little bit more. So we came here on YouTube, but we have much more conversation over there. And if you haven't joined us, please do. And finally, the most important part of the episode, we have the spotter for the number 7 Chevy Camaro, TJ Bell. He's coming on the show and he's going to tell us the life of a spotter and what they go through every weekend. And I'm super excited. I've followed the race scanners since I can remember, since I was little, and super cool to get that aspect of racing and to get that the information that he's going to let us know in the life of a spotter. And but before we start all of that, we are going to dial up our good buddies, Jeremy and Mike. All right, y'all, we're here with our good friends, Jeremy and Mike. You love them. You know them. They're here from Team SUPERSHOE. How you guys doing?
Doing pretty good, man. How you doing, Jeremy?
Man, I'm hanging in there. Just sticking at to be invited on the show this month.
Yeah, man. Tell the viewers where you're from and what you do, man.
Well, I reside out of Northwest Tennessee. Been here the majority of my life. Owner and co-owner of Southern Broadcast Racing Network. We do a lot of broadcasting for the iRacing, and actually trying to get our name out there a little bit more. So we've got about 3 leagues we run pretty heavy on Sunday through Wednesday. So make sure to just swing by and check us out on them if we can grow a little bit more.
Yeah. You got our buddy out there racing the shoe show car, so we'll definitely be tuning in.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to interview him a few times.
Yeah, for sure. So we wanted to I brought you guys on so we can talk about the past month's racing of there's Phoenix and Vegas and Atlanta. And Mike, you went to Atlanta. Wanted to know what your viewpoint was and what you thought of the race.
Hands down, best racing I've ever seen at Atlanta in person in 20 plus years, for sure. It's not everybody's cup of tea. There's definitely a lot of mixed reviews from a lot of different people on social media platforms or what have you. But me, myself, I loved being there. It was awesome seeing them kind of race in a pack, trying to see the runs materialize. And I think for once, doing a track reconfiguration, it actually worked out for NASCAR this time. It wasn't such a bomb. So kudos to them for sure.
Yeah, I loved the race. It was one of the I can't remember last time I've enjoyed a race that much. And it wasn't because Corey finished 5th, but it was because just the racing was a lot of fun and it was cool. It almost felt like we now have a 3rd super speedway. So it was just, it was pretty cool. I loved the runs they were getting off of the corners. And it was an exciting race. Not that I don't like short track racing or intermediates, but and I think it was too the surprise because none of us knew what we were going to get into. So, but we also had a couple other races last month. We had Vegas and Phoenix. Vegas, I enjoyed it. Cars are getting loose and wrecking, which I think is great. I think it shows you that how much of on the edge they are. Again, you see the Hendrick domination where Bowman won, but he beat his teammate Larson, which I think is pretty honorable considering that it's Kyle Larson. And Corey finished 15th, which is a good day for Corey LaJoie. And the fact that he started in the rear, I've really been enjoying this new car. And then you got Phoenix. Phoenix was great racing. I've always loved Phoenix, especially when they changed it where they have the back stretch to front. There's now the front stretch, and where they go 5 wide in the turn 1. And I was happy for Briscoe, happy for Stuart Haas Racing, and that they're able to finally get a good program rolling their way after, a bad year last year. And Corey, he had a short day, and it was definitely not what we as Corey LaJoie's fans were looking forward to seeing. But that actually made me want to talk to you guys about the kind of the wheel debacle that we've been having this year, it seems. So I kind of researched a little bit. And so for the Daytona 500, you had the 31 and the 50 Colleague and the Money Team Racing. They both got issued the same penalties as Corey LaJoie's team did in Phoenix, where they got their crew chief suspended for 4 races and multiple team members suspended. You had a few other throughout the season. There has been other blowouts of tires where they haven't. Nobody ever said anything about it. Like, for instance, Martin Truex blew a tire at Phoenix and the same thing happened, but yet I never heard or read anything about them getting penalized. But just interesting, interesting about both the hub and the tire. And then Corey, obviously at Phoenix, he hit the wall and the tire popped off. It's a debate whether or not the tire failed before he hit the wall or after he hit the wall, then the hub fell off and all that. But they ended up hitting our guy Sparky, ended up hitting him with 4-way suspension. And I know he did not agree with it. In fact, I know he's proposing the fact that there was no wheel problem, and until they hit the wall and it shattered that right front, that it wasn't an issue. I also looked up I've never looked up the NASCAR rule book before, but I tried to, and apparently it's not a public thing. It's apparently only for the insiders, which is interesting. So the violation fell under a section 10.526 of the NASCAR rule book, which penalizes teams for loss or separation of an improperly installed tire or wheel from the vehicle. So you're penalized because it's improperly installed. Obviously now, knowing court of law a little bit, how do you prove that it's, how do you know that it's improperly installed? Whether or not, except for like a mechanic failure, or it's hard for me to see that. And, I just wanted to ask you guys, what your opinions on with that. Is this something that's just like a growing pain and it's okay for NASCAR to be doing what they're doing, or you think it's too extreme? Like, where do you guys stand on that?
You can go ahead, Jeremy.
Honestly, the engineers ought to be like, if anybody's held responsible for it, it should be them. If you got 5 on it, you never really hear about the wheels falling off if you scruff the wall or if you hit the wall the past years that you have this year. Now if you hit it a little too hard, half your car falls to pieces. But if you had your 5 lugs on there, if one of the lug nuts fall off, you still got a little bit more that's going to hold it on there instead of one lug nut or one hub, whatever they want to call it. So I don't think it's going to be like the crew chief's fault or the driver's fault, the pit crew fault. I think it more falls on like the engineering, whoever came up with this awesome idea to help in faster pit times or whatever the reason for it was.
So my opinion, and I'm pretty sure it's been shared by some of the other people, like Corey LaJoie, maybe even Ryan Sparks himself, and that was, in years past when we had 5 lugs on the tires, teams would try to get slick at the end of the race and maybe only hit 3 or 4 lugs. It gains you a 1/10 or 2 of a second, and maybe that's the difference in a few more spots. And so NASCAR said, hey, we got to put a stop to that, and so we're going to penalize you guys if we catch you doing that in post-race inspection, whatever. So I feel like this is just a carryover of that same rule. However, going back to what I was saying, Corey has been quoted as saying, isn't it enough penalty to have a wheel come off the car and it's destroyed. It's pancaked in the side of the fence, and now we're going home dead last, no points, no prize money kind of deal. I feel like it's way too severe. Knocking a crew chief out for 4 races because of something that is obviously not a competition advantage. Like, nobody's going to leave a lug loose to gain a 1/10 of a second now. It's, well, I wanted to gain 2 spots on the exit of pit road. We gave it all right back when they dropped the green flag. It fell off, So I don't get it. Free Sparky. That's what they need to do. Free Sparky, let him come back, and let's move on. It's just crazy.
Yeah. We kind of chatted about it on Team SUPERSHOE on Facebook a little bit, both, that it's been too harsh, and a lot of it that's been, kind of pro NASCAR and saying that, they're just kind of doing their job and they have to do that for liability purposes. In fact, one of our good buddies from the show, Chris Beer, said that, the rules weren't necessarily made to, it's not for like the advantage of the driver and that they're trying to cheat or anything. It's just that it's a liability thing that they have to do in case, God forbid, that wheel HUD pops off and goes up into the stands. Hurts or kills somebody, that they are saying, well, look at all the things that we're doing to implement that these, and it's the team's fault. It's not NASCAR's fault. So they, they're pushing that envelope. And then I've also read that, a lot of people compare NASCAR now to, because we share a lot of the same body parts and, the one lug wheels or whatever you call them, they are comparing us to places like F1 and IMSA, where they're saying that, well, these guys don't have this problem. Why do you have this problem? Or, what have you, which I find kind of unfair, right? They're completely different race cars. They're built completely different, even though you might have similar parts. I don't know. It's just, it's an interesting conversation to have. And, who knows what the right answer is. So
I guess just in short, all I can say is I hope it's an issue that obviously Corey LaJoie's team can find a way to resolve, but just the sport as a whole. I'm willing to understand that, this is a new product, a new car, a new design, whatever. There's going to be flaws that have to be caught, whatever, but kind of sucks to watch your guy get knocked out for 4 races while everybody's trialing and erroring while they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, we have Martinsville coming up. I'm pretty excited about that. And I am interested to see how this new car is going to be handling that shorter track. I mean, granted, we saw the 1/4 mile Coliseum earlier, but still going to be pretty different. And, we had Ryan Sparks on a few months ago where he said that, he's interested to see how the wheel well sticking out, how the racing is going to be different. He thinks it's going to be different. It's not going to be like we're used to. They're not going to be able to take their left front and bump into somebody's right rear and, slam into them a little bit and be a little dirty. That you have to be a little more finesse with this new car. You guys think that it's going to end up being a good race, as good as last year's, or are we gonna have some more growing pains with this car?
If the cars stay together, I mean, the track, it's so old, which is a good thing. It's got nostalgia with it. But like Atlanta last week, it's been redone. The cars had issues there, and that track's less than 6 months old. Martinsville, it's pretty old, made back in the 40s, only been painted a couple of times. And you're putting a new product that is less than a year old on a product that's 100 years old when they're already having issues with the cars, with the tires falling off. And these are at bigger tracks. I mean, you saw at the Coliseum, it being a short track, a lot of turning, wheels fall off, the cars get loose. Martinsville, I think it's going to be a whole lot worse than the Coliseum, just for the fact the drivers are going to be going so much faster. So cars, this is really going to put a real test to the durability on whether or not they're Walmart cars or Dollar General cars.
Yeah.
I think it's probably too early to know for sure, obviously, what the racing is going to be like. But one thing I do want to comment on is it seems like these cars hold up remarkably well in the event of a crash, right? Like, I've seen some guys take some hits yesterday that typically the car would have been in like 6 or 7 different major pieces, right? And they just had like flat tires and a messed up left front fender, it seemed like, some of them. So I feel like the cars are holding together remarkably well there, but I am concerned more mechanically wise, going back to what Ryan Sparks was saying. If these guys get to banging rear tires and they break the half shafts in the back, I mean, that's kind of a bummer, right? Like, because that's what short tracks are all about, is being able to bump and bang and use the chrome horn and whatever. So I think we just got to get there and we got to see what it all brings to the table. But if the cars can hold up mechanically anywhere near as efficiently as they have in the event of a crash, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see it. I was a little weary about the new Atlanta track, and that turned out great. I was even weary about the Coliseum, and I thought it was good racing. Obviously, Corey is, didn't make it into the main, but it was still, I enjoyed it, at least in my opinion. So I think that it's going to go well, and not to completely bash the next gen or Gen 7 that we have now. I've actually really enjoyed most of the races this season so far. I just like to see fairness, so but with Martinsville coming up, kind of made me think about, this is my favorite track. I've always loved the short track racing and the beating the banging. So hopefully, we see some of that. Hopefully see a good fight or something. That'd be awesome. But I wanted to ask you guys what your favorite memories from Martinsville was. The things that stick out in my mind only are because they're my favorite drivers that won it. But initially was John Andretti was kind of my go-to driver after Richard Petty retired. When I was little, I stuck to John Andretti, and that was his second win of only 2 wins in the Cup Series. But he won in '99 there, and that was pretty cool. And I saw that, and I also enjoyed I then became a Jimmy Johnson fan once I decided not to follow the 43 anymore. And when Jimmy was roughing up Jeff Gordon a little bit in '07, I enjoyed that quite a bit. I think we talked about that on the show before, where me and my mom's a Jeff Gordon fan, so we had a little bit of a rivalry. And that was, I was still growing up and watching racing as a kid, so it was exciting to see that. And just always love the entertainment that Martinsville brings.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely have to parallel to that point. It was the early to mid 2000s. It seemed like, if there was 2 races a year at Martinsville, well, you can count Hendrick was going to win both of them. It was just a difference of whether it was Jeff Gordon or Jimmy Johnson. And so that always was a ton of fun, especially me being a Jeff Gordon fan. He's got a lot of wins there, a lot of grandfather clocks in his possession somewhere, I'm sure. But I say my favorite memory of that is probably, I think it was the spring race of 1997. So Jeff Gordon was in some lap traffic. He was the leader of the race. And so old Jimmy Spencer in the old number 23 car, sponsored by like the Camel cigarettes or whatever, he spun Jeff Gordon around, coming around the exit at turn 4. And Gordon downshifted into second gear and just stayed in the gas, spun it around 360 and kept going. And luckily the car was never hurt, but that was a cool memory just from being a kid. They called it the spin and win, I guess. But yeah, always good racing there, man. Also want to talk about, do you guys remember whenever the broadcast used to start, like the old school ESPN broadcast, right? They'd have a camera come down pit road and it's, panning across the cars and the drivers and whatever. And then you'd have like Jerry Punch going, "Oh, we got 500 laps here at Martinsville." And then they'd start talking about the big brake systems that they would use there, the bigger rotors, the bigger calipers, the bigger pads, whatever. It's crazy to see how much these cars have come along, because guys used to have brake failures there every time they went. It was a 500 lap race. They can only find a way to make them last 300 laps. Guys were burning the rear gears out of the rear end. And it was just a different time. Obviously the cars weren't as well engineered, I guess. The technology just wasn't quite there to hold up, but it was just crazy to always see the broadcast back then, and just how much information that you really got thrown in the first 15 minutes of the race. And it really gave you a good idea of what to expect, just as a side note anyway. Good memories.
You talked about them being a whole lot better. One of the ones I remember somewhat, which I had to have a little bit of help on this one, was with Ricky Rudd when his cooling box went out. I mean, drove nearly a good 60 so laps, exhausted. If I recall right, he like had some pretty good burns, near about done his interview laid out, you know, near about stripped down on oxygen and everything. But I don't think you'll see the same endurance from drivers today as you used to back in the old school when Martinsville was in its prime. So that's going to be something else to take into effect because, you know, it's going to be hot out there. And if those cooling systems go down, you're going to see who can hang on to 200 laps with no heat and pray to God they don't die. I mean,
yeah,
but that was a pretty good one, which unfortunately that was the last one he got that ended off his streak of one win a year. So that 16 streak was broke. So, I mean, that hopefully we'll have another one that can start something up similar to it.
All right. Well, guys, appreciate you coming on the show and talking with me. Please, everybody, go and tune into the Southern Broadcast Racing Network, and where Jeremy will provide you with some good entertainment and good commentary. So, and Mike, always a pleasure to have you on the show as always. You're my brother from another mother, and I appreciate you so much, man. So, next up, we got Josh Madore. He is our statistician magician. He's going to be talking to us about Talladega coming up. So without further ado, here is Josh Madore. And we're back, guys, and we're here yet again with our good friend and the shoe analyst, Josh Madore. Josh, how you doing, man?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing good. I'm excited to have another episode for the fans out here in Team SUPERSHOE, and I'm excited for some Talladega racing. I heard you got some good stuff to talk about.
Yeah, nothing like super speedway racing. It used to be called restrictor plate, I guess, but I got to get with the times. Yeah, so as I like to do, I pulled up some numbers for how he's done, how Corey has done in the past with Talladega, and it's kind of a mixed bag, to be honest. I think it's fair to say that Daytona is his better track of the two super speedways, but not by much. So it's kind of a tale of two stories. The first story really is that his average finish is 20.6. So it's his third best track if you take all the averages. Second best if you take out some of the smaller tracks that he hasn't run very much on. So of tracks that he's run more than 8 times, it's actually his second best track by average, 20.6. But because of that, he doesn't have a lot of really, great finishes. He's got some decent ones. He's got a 7th place in 2019 with Go Fast Racing. And his most recent 2 races, he finished 22nd both times. So he's got a lot of low 20s, a lot of teens in his finishes for Talladega, but nothing that'll blow you away. So I just want to caution that. I think if you look into it a little bit more, it's because a lot of these races in Talladega have been more tame for some reason than Daytona. You look at the cars that have been out of the race when it ends, you don't see half the field out. For some reason, there's more racing service. You can go 4 wide, even 5 wide sometimes. So I think that lends itself to a more calculated and more tame race. Therefore, at the end of the race, for some reason, whether it's his engine at the time or just where he's been running, it hasn't been in the cards for him to kind of move up there and make some moves. So it's interesting. And the other thing, too, that I'll say is all 8 races that he's been in Talladega, he has been running at the finish. So that's an interesting stat because we all know how good he is at avoiding wrecks. Like one of my favorite things to do at super speedway races when the wrecks happen is to kind of watch where he is and be like, he made it through. He made it through. So that's something that I will say. I can't really say if that'll happen again, and maybe he's due for not finishing. I don't want to put that negative mojo out there, but so far he's been able to finish each race at Talladega.
Yeah. I remember last year's race. I don't remember one of the two. We had the Fox Nation on the car, and he kind of just hung back the whole time. I'm kind of. It might be the plan again this year, just like in Daytona. They just want to survive and collect the paycheck because at the end of the day, they're a striving young team that only has a certain amount of parts and certain amount of chassis available. So wanted to ask you the Daytona race that we had in February. It either was Brad Keselowski or it was just the no shape in general. Do you think that we're going to continue to have issues with bump drafting where people get hit in just the wrong spot and get sent flying and cause big wrecks?
Yeah, I would be inclined to say so. I don't know what number race this is on the schedule. It's probably the 7th or 8th race or something. I would like to say that the car has been figured out by then, but just based on super speedway racing, probably not. So I would say, yeah, there's probably going to be a lot of that bump drafting, a lot of aggressive blocking as always. So I wouldn't count that out at all. I think as we progress in the season, maybe the second race or the fall races at super speedways probably will be a little bit different. But I think for now, teams are still learning and they're still kind of feeling out what their cars will do on different tracks. In terms of what Corey can do, whether it's lay back and kind of, assess the situation throughout the race. I heard him say on his podcast that, their plan early in the year is to conserve as many cars as possible. And then the second visit to Daytona and Talladega, that's when they're going to go for it. So I would advise the fans of the 7 not to worry if he's hanging in the back most of the race. And if there's a lot of crashes, like I mentioned earlier, he can probably move up. But I wouldn't expect anything too crazy from him this race, unless, like I said, things kind of fall the way they should.
Yeah. All right, Josh. Well, what is the prediction? Where is he finishing?
So, based on, the numbers that I mentioned and based on the kind of the talking points I just kind of brought up, I'm not going to go too aggressive on the guess. I'm going to say a finish in a top 15, top 20 is something that he should probably, get. So I'm going to say P16. I'm going to say that's a solid day. Keep it in one piece. Top 20, move on to the next race. So I think that would be considered a successful day for the 7 team.
For sure. 16th is always a successful day for Corey LaJoie and Spire. So they're always aiming to be top 20. So
yep, that's I've said that before, and your reader or your listeners and viewers might get tired of me saying this, but and I posted this on the group too, on the Facebook group. The rule of thumb for me is kind of, as long as he exceeds his average finish up until that point. And so as of this recording, his average is like 23rd or something. So if he goes out there and exceeds his season average each time, that should be considered a success, because you want to be moving in the right direction. And so I've said this before, if you look at his last 3 years average finish, he's improved every year, 4 years, I think, of full-time racing. So in my mind, as long as you're improving, as long as you're getting better, that's what you should be striving for. And same thing with the season. If you keep improving each race and get a higher finish than your average, barring any mechanical problems, like we saw at I'm blanking on where we were just work because I didn't watch Phoenix. I kind of blocked that out of my mind because I didn't watch most of the race because of that. But yeah, so that's what you should be doing, is improving on your average. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Right. All right, Josh. Well, we appreciate your expertise as always, and look forward to talking to you again next month.
Looking forward to it as well. Thanks again for having me on.
Yes, sir.
TJ Bell from Sparks, Nevada. Born on August 25th, 1980, it took TJ only 8 years to find his way into the racing scene. Like so many others that we've discussed here on the Shoe Show, TJ made his start in karting at a very young age. In 1989, he started a string of 6 consecutive state championships in the kart series. You might could say he too was a natural from the beginning. 1997 would see him move to the SCCA F2000 series, competing in 9 different events and capturing the checkered flag 1 time. In 2000, TJ would join the kart Toyota Atlantic division, where he would stack 5 top 5 finishes to his credit, and he would soon add to his resume runs in the 24 Hours of Daytona, 12 Hours of Sebring, and the 24-hour Le Mans race. 2003 would be the year that seen TJ make his start in stock car racing. Competing in the truck series for Team Racing, he would take the green flag 9 times that season. His best finish of those races, a very respectable 9th at Dover. In
2004, TJ moved to the ARCA Remax series for PowerTech Motorsports and would show strength. He finished third in points and locked up the title for Rookie of the Year. Next year in 2005, he would compete in 18 additional ARCA Remax series events. 2007 and 2008 would see him make a return to the Truck Series. Making starts with several different teams, he was able to amass 5 top 5s, turning heads furthermore in the garage. In 2012, TJ would make starts across the board in all 3 premier national touring divisions of NASCAR, while running full-time in the then Nationwide Series. Since 2012, TJ has been a journeyman in the Truck Series, racing wherever he could just to turn laps, all for the love of racing. But in 2020, like so many others, he was hit hard by the COVID pandemic. With limited available opportunities, chances for rides would be slim picking, and it sidelined Bell from being able to showcase his talent furthermore. And so if 2020 seen TJ down and out and feeling at his lowest, 2021 would be 180 degrees the opposite. It would see him positioned high atop the spotter tower, being the guiding force behind the number 7 Spire Motorsports entry, driven by none other than Corey LaJoie. Judging by the scanner audio every week, it's safe to say that TJ has adjusted remarkably well to his new role. 2022 sees him reprise that same role with Spire Motorsports, and he has done a remarkable job in the first few races of the season. And so without further ado, help us make welcome the spotter, TJ Bell.
Still inside bumper. Back inside bumper. 21-1, back 1 up. Whatever you need. That's 15 on your tires right there. That was a good lap, good lap. 28.79, good lap right there. Still 1 back, lane 4. He's just going to lane 4, turning it down the center, trying to get a run. He's out of line, looking. Inside. 10-4. How about you, T-Bell? Yeah, man. Loud clear.
All right, y'all, we're back, and we are here with the journeyman, the eye in the sky, the only chatter that matters, a spotter for the Chevy 7 Camaro, Mr. TJ Bell. TJ, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule to come hang out with us. So I wanted to ask you, how has the season been so far for you up in the spotter stand?
I mean, in the spotter stand, it's been good. I feel like we set some expectations early in the year that I don't think we've really lived up to, and I think we've had to really adjust those. But everyone's learning with this new car, and Corey's learning, all Spire Motorsports and the 7 crews learning a bunch on it. So even up in the spotter stand, it's different the way these things race and stuff like that. So me learning the closing rates and the drafting and stuff like that's been a challenge as well. But we're all doing it together.
Nice. And has the next gen been the challenge this year? Has that been what's been the biggest issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Racing's different. You go back to Phoenix and just trying to figure out if we could even use the flats on restarts to see if we couldn't, if we didn't tear off the bottom of the race car and just stuff like that. Just a bunch of unknowns going in. And, I think the next gen car has done a lot for our sport, but it's also left a lot of unanswered questions that we're all still trying to figure out. Yeah.
And I was curious, you guys, as we're recording this, we just got done with Phoenix. This actually isn't going to air until next month, but I was curious what the challenges are for each track. Your intermediates versus super speedways versus road courses. Like what is it like as a spotter?
I mean, just different tracks present different issues. Phoenix, as we were just talking about, we're in a very odd position at that racetrack. We're located in the middle of 3 and 4, looking down both straightaways. So it gives you a different perspective. Getting into the corner, it's hard to tell, really inside, outside, just because you're looking at the tail or the nose coming at you or going away. That's probably I feel the most difficult one to call. And then just like I said, the closing rates, different packages they've been running. I think is different than like last year. You knew you had the 550 package. You knew you had the 750 package. you knew how they were going to race. We're just trying to get used to the closing rates, the drafting and stuff like that.
I got you. And Talladega is coming up in April. Is that something that you're excited for or something that you dread as a spotter?
Both.
Yeah.
Now Talladega is it's different. They have us located down by the start finish line, so it's one of those racetracks where turn 3 is literally like a mile away, and it feels like that. So it's one of the toughest to call. Super speedway wise, Daytona, you're right in the middle of the tri-oval, so it's pretty equal both ends. Talladega, you're looking pretty far down to turn 3, but we had a bunch of unknowns going into Daytona on how these things were going to race. And if you had to be in a group of, 5 to 7, or if you were going to shuck the back car. And I think at the end of the day, with all these guys in the Cup Series, it turns into a race. That's just what these guys do, is they race and they race hard. They're going to figure it out. So, I was really worried about Daytona and thought it was going to be a boring race, but it ended up being great. So I think Talladega is going to be really good. I think it's going to be back-to-pack racing, 2 wide, 3 wide. It's just it's a chest match at 200 miles an hour for both me and Corey. He's probably looking in the mirror more than he is the window, and I'm talking probably more than he wants to hear.
All right. Yeah. So I've, since I can remember, I've been a big fan of spotters and crew chiefs and the chatter on the race view back in the day, and listening to the headsets when you go to the races. And so I've always wondered, they don't spotlight you guys enough, I don't think. And I've always wondered what the life is like for a spotter going up on the stand every weekend. Do you guys have to like claim a spot? Like what is the prep like for a spotter?
Yeah, no, it's obviously I'm a little bit new coming from the driving side, and so I can respect both sides of it. Spotter's life. There's been guys been up there for a long, long time. They have their spots every week. We get up there, we tape off spots, and sometimes I take a spot of a veteran and I have to move. But I feel like I've been up there now. This is my second year in Cup, so I'm getting back to places where I have my spots, and it's it's just a comfortability thing. Like, you don't have to have that spot, but that's just your spot. And I had my spot in Phoenix, in Talladega. I've been lucky enough to know a lot of these spotters through my whole career, that they helped me out a bunch up there. But it's the biggest issue I think for us spotters is trying to find parking close enough to the spotter stand to be able to get there and get down after the race.
Okay. And so throughout the years, I've heard on the radio traffic, Corey and others, that it's, sending messages. You're standing up next to all the other spotters and they say, tell that spotter, sorry, or X, Y, and Z, or God forbid you're Kyle Busch's spotter and he goes and tell him to go screw off. So what's the chemistry like hanging out like that and having that ability? Like, are you just as nervous to say something, like, or do you guys just say it and then don't do it, or how does all that play out?
Well, I mean, I don't want to give away all the secrets, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of chatter and a lot of movement up there, especially like restrictor plate racing or, Daytona, Talladega. There's a lot of moving parts. We are moving around a bunch up there, and it's just like in the garage, or just like all the drivers. It's a big fraternity. We all try to help each other the best we can. If it's, trying to work together or trying to, pit road's one of the biggest things. We're running up and down, talking to you before the race. We figure out who's in front of us, who's behind us, and try to work with them as much as the crew chiefs trying to work with the other crew chiefs. Spotters are up there working. Trying to make everything go as smooth as possible for everybody. We're not up there trying to, screw each other. We're up there trying to help our driver do the best we can.
Gotcha. And you said you, during the race, you're kind of moving about on the spotter stand. Could you tell us, for a lot of us that don't know what you guys do other than just watching and calling out everything, what you do on race day?
I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it than I even knew. But obviously we take care of pit road map, take care of pit road speeds, try to remind him of his lights. We are listening. Most of us wear 4 radios. We listen to channel 1 and channel 2, which channel 2 is, pretty much solely for the spotter to talk to the crew chief. We listen to NASCAR, and then a lot of us scan ourselves. So we have 4 things going on our heads at all times. And then I'm always looking at lap times, gaps, how many laps we've run, where cars are moving around on the racetrack, just trying to give Corey as much information as I can and not having him think about too much. You know, we work on all of our switches that's in the race car. We're just a reminder, you know. Sparks does a great job on 2 of helping me out, but we just are always trying to do as much for Corey so he doesn't have to think about that as possible.
Right. All right. Well, switching gears, you are a race car driver and you have accomplished a lot in your career. If you were able to jump into a car tomorrow, what would you be jumping into?
I'm not gonna lie, I'd like to go back truck racing. Racing is so much fun. Cup racing is obviously the pinnacle of the sport. Everyone wants to be a cup racer. Truck racing is just, man, like when they drop the rag, it's just go as hard as you can. Just hard racing. I don't know if I agree with all the racing that's come about now, but it's changed. A lot of respect and stuff like that's gone out the window. But truck racing is it feels like grassroots. It just feels fun. Cup racing, yeah, I'd love to get in one of these new cars. They look awesome, especially on a road course, being that was my background. These big old brakes, sequential gearboxes, stuff like that. They look like they'd be a blast on a road course. But once again, I think I'd drive anything if they gave me the opportunity. Yeah.
I got you. Well, so with all of the racing experience under your belt, do you have a favorite moment as either a driver or a spotter?
Like I have to differentiate them. Like, it was weird because when I went to Daytona last year with Ben Rhodes, we ended up winning the first 2 races, and it was a different feeling. It was like I was excited, but not at that point. I hadn't given up on my driving career, so I wasn't as excited. And then when we won the championship at Phoenix, it was a whole different level of excitement because I've taken on my role and knew where I was in life. And it made it a lot more special. And as far as driving, I think the coolest thing I've ever done was the 24 Hours of Le Mans, being able to do the driver parade and just downtown Le Mans, the old Bentleys and riding around. And the European fans are just so knowledgeable. It was really, really cool.
Nice. How long did you race that? How long was your seat time in that race?
So that was the funny part. We were over there over a month, I think. And I did a lot of the night driving and, all the practices at night because it's half the race. Half the racetrack is town roads. So I did a lot of the night driving and stuff like that. I did the qualifying at night, and we ended up wrecking 30 minutes into the race. So I didn't even get in the seat during the race.
Oh, I got you. All right. Well, guess it's not the good question to ask then.
Yeah, no. It's that actually is when I quit sports car racing and came over back to America and decided to go stock car racing.
I got you. So with Spire keeping you on board as a spotter, do you ever plan on racing again?
I mean, I'm not going to say no, but I'm enjoying what I do. I love Spire. I've had a few race teams in my career where it just feels like a family, and this is definitely a family. We have fun together. We race hard together. We work hard. It's one of those organizations that the owners truly care about the people, and it's a really cool feeling. And I'm just glad to be part of it.
Nice. Well, we're glad to have you guys keeping up Corey on the racetrack and keeping him motivated. This is the first time I've ever actually realized that there is a different channel. This year was the first year I've noticed that where, Ryan will talk to you and say, hey, I'll keep him pumped up or something. I'm like, God, I had no idea that they talked around him.
Yeah.
All right. So a final question for you before you get on with your day. If we'll say it's Talladega and it's 1 to go and you lead that 7 to victory, he goes down to victory lane. What's that going to mean to you as a spotter and into your racing career? And what are we drinking that night?
Oh man. Yeah, it'll mean a lot. I mean, it'll mean a lot to Corey. You know, it's coming. He deserves it. He's an unbelievable talent. You know, I think this new car is going to let him showcase it. You know, and to win Talladega, to win any race in the Cup Series would be just unbelievable for, you know, me, Spire, anybody. And I'm sure if I'm with Shoe and we win, it'll probably be a pretty good bourbon we're having that night.
All right. Yeah, sounds like Corey. So, all right, TJ Bell. Well, man, thank you so much for spending time with us on Team SUPERSHOE, and appreciate your support, man.
Thank you guys. Make sure you guys tune in every week. We'll do our best to get that thing up front.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. Again, TJ, thank you so much for hanging out with us on the Shoe Show. Without you, obviously, Corey would be lost on that track. So your job is very important, and I have always respected that job, and it's something that not a lot of people know about. So it's cool to get your take on it, and also your take also as being a race car driver as well. You bring a lot to the table, and you're just a huge asset to Spire. So our next segment is going to be Team SUPERSHOE's Member of the Month. Once again, somebody from our Facebook group, my buddy TU, military veteran. He's about to talk to us and let us know why he pulls for Corey. So without further ado, here's TU.
Hi, Team SUPERSHOE. This is TJ, coming to you from a little corner of my basement here in O'Fallon, Illinois, about 20 minutes east of St. Louis. And I'm here to talk about how I became a NASCAR fan, and more importantly, how I became a Corey LaJoie fan. So I've always been into cars. My parents own an auto parts store, and my uncle, grandfather owned auto parts stores in the Philippines. So always been surrounded by cars. Inevitably, I was going to fall in love with cars. So I started racing at a young age. My parents tried getting me into motocross. My dad and my uncle at the time were racing motocross, and found out that, you know, I wasn't very good at it. At the same time, you know, budgetary constraints as well. So I gravitated towards more grassroots type of racing. And we'll talk about my racing here in a little bit, and how it relates to me being a Corey fan, and how I continue to cheer for Corey every Sunday. So how I became a Corey fan. I am fairly new to NASCAR. I recently only started watching NASCAR the past 2 years. I've been aware of NASCAR when I was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas. Actually, my unit volunteers to become tram operators, moving, you know, the fans around the track, getting them to the gate and whatnot. And you see a little bit of the behind the scenes on how races are ran and how races are produced. So that piqued a little bit of my curiosity. As a car guy, consume a lot of media. So I was watching Motor Trend one day, and I saw a documentary, you know, it says All In Battle for Daytona. And at the time I was a little bit hyped from getting ready to watch the 24 Hours of Daytona as a sports car fan and not a NASCAR fan at the time. So I was like, you know what, let's check this out. So I watched the one episode, ended up watching all the episodes, and slowly getting interested in stock car racing. As a grassroots type of guy, it was very easy to gravitate towards Corey. He was racing for Go Fast Racing at the time, a very small team, as you all know. And just seeing all the behind the scenes aspects of how to get the car on track and how to get the car ready on Sunday for a very small underfunded team just gravitated towards me. It was natural that I was going to cheer for Corey. Just seeing him living in a townhome at the time, driving a 2006, I think, Lincoln truck or something like that. So you're like, wow, this is a regular Joe that happens to be racing in one of the best leagues, sports or racing leagues in the whole world. And you're like, wow. So that's very natural progression for me to start cheering for him. So how I met Corey once. I haven't had the pleasure of really meeting him multiple times and seeing him around the track. Like I said, I've been a fairly new NASCAR fan, and I was deployed for most of 2020 and half of 2021, where really I started becoming a big NASCAR fan. So hopefully now that I live in the Midwest and I'm closer to more NASCAR tracks, I can see and cheer for Corey more in person at tracks. So how I met Corey once, like I said, I actually started following his old hauler driver from Go Fast Racing, Ron, and found out that, like me, he's also an Air Force logistician. And he was doing a lot of live streams. I like taking road trips and seeing him drive up and down I-40. Kind of, you see all the sights that you see when you're driving around. So I started watching a lot of live streams. So late 2020, I was about to deploy to the Middle East. And it's just some happenstance that my flight got moved. And Ron said, hey, Corey is going to have an appearance here in Las Vegas. If you want, stop by, say hi. And I was actually mostly at the time just wanting to meet Ron and talk about him. Talk about how you know, he brings more fans to the 32 at the time. So I met him, and Mason was like, hey, Corey's going to be here today. Why don't you come back? So went home, came back, and I had one die cast at the time, and a Motor Trend hat that I won from a contest. And I was able to get Corey to sign that. He also signed one of my folders. In the military, you take a folder with you whenever you go to bring all your documents. So I took that folder with me when I deployed, kind of like a good luck charm, and you know, just a little memory of home at the time when I lived in Las Vegas. So yeah, so continue to cheer for Corey, and why I continue to cheer is because of his overall positive attitude. Again, still a grassroots guy, and you know, their family supports a lot of grassroots racers around the United States with the joy of seating. So I continue to cheer for him. So going back, so like I said, I'm a racer. Here's my current race car. It's my 2004 Mazda RX-8, currently prepared for SCCA Autocross. Again, very under-prepped car at the moment due to budgetary constraints. And here's another, here's a 2013 Scion FRS that we brought to the 2019 SCCA Solo Nationals. Funny story about that, that kind of parallels to Corey's racing. We brought the car, we found out that the tires we had were not the fastest tires, it was a different brand. So we were able to get a used set of tires from another racer that was done racing. And hearing sometimes Sparks talk on the radio how when they were in the 32, how they buy tires from other teams, that kind of just makes it all relatable to me, and why I continue to cheer for Corey. But the biggest thing is I continue to cheer for him because of his positive attitude, like I said earlier. Oftentimes we get lost in wanting the biggest thing on the biggest stage at all times. But the motto of stacking pennies really resonates with me, because on the day-to-day, you have to find things that you're grateful for. And with him, and he even said, hey, I went to a sports psychologist, and because I was having such a hard time. So that's when he keyed the term stacking pennies, and that resonates with, hey, let's find something to be grateful for every day. And that's why it's very easy to cheer for him. Another thing that is an upside of cheering for him is actually has brought my family closer. Me the wife and the kids now look forward to every Sunday. We make it an event, and we either make good food or buy food from someplace else to sit down, have some time together in the family to watch NASCAR and cheer for Corey. So I hope you guys enjoyed my little talk here and continue to cheer for Corey and keep stacking pennies.
TU, thank you so much for being a part of Team SuperShoe, and thank you so much for your sacrifice. Without people like you, we would not be free, and nobody would be listening to old Joshua Sky on the YouTube channel spitting his rhymes. And so I appreciate everybody that's been a part of this show, whether it's Josh Madore, whether it's Mike, whether it's Jeremy, TU, and of course the spotter, TJ Bell, coming to hang out with us. It's been a good episode, and man, I'm so grateful for all this. Tune in next month. We're going to have an even better episode. And if you could please subscribe, like, and comment. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers so that we can have a custom URL. So if you could please help us out in that journey. And guys, thank you so much. God bless and stay safe.